Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. Let your voice shine. You have landed at another amazing episode of the Her Voice Shines podcast. And of course, I'm your fabulous host, Shanasia Washington, streaming from Houston, Texas. I've been on a roll. I am back in the recording studio, and every session has been nothing short of amazing. And guess what? I'm putting this guest on the hot seat so we can get her name, where she's streaming from, and get the magic of her story. Without any further waiting time, here's my very beautiful guest for today.
Shanasia, thank you so much for having me. And that intro video is so good. Break the barriers and lift each other up. I can't think of a better way to spend my morning with you.
Yes, come on now, Erika. Look at Erika. You over there glowing and looking all magical. Tell us where you're streaming from and give us some insight into who this beautiful woman is.
I am in Albany, New York. This is where I live with my wonderful husband and my little fur babies. I started a business called Upstream HR Strategies about 7 years ago after a 20-year career in corporate America. So I actually was an executive HR leader at General Electric for all of those 20 years before I started to consult. And there's a reason we made the jump from corporate America into consulting, because even in a company like GE, which is really world renowned and known for its ability to develop and progress employees' careers, I saw some holes in the process. And I found some frustrations that instead of complaining about, I just wanted to fix. And so a lot of people don't call me Erika, they call me the career Sherpa, because I love to take people by the hand and guide them through their career journey, which can be a very confusing place to be without a guide.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely something, Erika. I left in 2021 after a 13-year career in global financial management. So we were managing global teams. And unfortunately, and maybe fortunately for me, at the end of my career, I had a battle, I should say, with HR. And the fact that you said that you've seen so many holes in the process, I am the living embodiment of the hole. I just want to say that. I did not have a pleasant experience with my HR. And even with, me being this great person, I had a great career, 10 roles in 13 years, which means I mastered and move on. I'm not a girl that just kind of sticks and plugs and play. But the issue with that, and really why this platform is this, because we never know that when we're in the kind of crux of our career, that it could be the very thing that frees us. Because in that space, I was like, man, if I could just have someone else that was like a partner to help me be more visible, help this voice be more sound. And I'm wishing and praying for all these things, never knowing that I was right on the other side of doing that, not only for myself, but so many other women. So when I left corporate in a very toxic place, coming here was not only a place of passion and purpose, but it was just the confirmation that so many women needed voice, visibility, and really how to stand up. So I already know that 20 years being in the role that you were, you've seen a lot of things. Well, one of the things that you said, I looked around. Yes, I've been snooping around, Erika. You said this. You said, I don't see challenges, only problems to solve. Number one, that is the excellent mindset. Excellent mindset, because when you're solving problems, you are helping and bridging the gap for people. Tell me, how does that mindset influence your work at Upstream HR?
Yeah, I saw that question. What are some of your challenges? They are just problems to solve, because I think anything that comes in front of us, even if it is something that is very difficult to navigate and wade through, it comes with a lesson that we are supposed to learn, that we are here to learn. And listen, everyone has that moment when you're faced with something that is really tough. You're always going to have that moment of like, oh boy, what am I going to do about this? But when you take a step back and start to break any challenge down into smaller pieces, when you start to leverage the people around you in your network as sounding boards, and use those people to help you find ideas and figure out how to get past this challenge, you figure out pretty quickly once you do it 1, 2, 3, 4 times that you can keep doing it over and over and over.
Sure. And using that sounding board, a lot of people kind of take it for granted a little bit. If you have a couple, 2, 3 people that are in your back pocket that you can use, I call it as an executive board. I said, look, I have my own personal executive board. I have a coach and other couple people that I can bounce ideas off of. Do not take that for granted, because those are people that are kind of helping you navigate a space that can be tough. And sometimes if you've been in a place for so long and you don't have another opinion of somebody to pour in, you could really, really be stuck there. So thank you for raising that. One of the other things I said, let me ask her this, because she said she wants to create a workplace that people go home and rave about. Now, there was a point, Erika, there was a point in my career back in corporate where I thought I had a place where I was going home to rave about it. And then leadership started changing, and then different practices started happening, and I wasn't ranting and raving anymore.
Right.
So tell me what that looks like in practice. If you can say in your mind, if someone is going home and they're ranting and raving about the workplace, what are they saying, and what does that look like in practice?
So you said there was a manager, you said leadership changed, and all of a sudden that changed for you. And I think that's really what we need to think about. Research shows that 70% of an employee's level of engagement at work is driven by their relationship with their direct manager. It's not senior leaders. It's not your 1-over-1 manager. It's certainly not the HR team. It's your relationship with that direct manager. And I find that there's 4 things that drive that relationship. If you work for a leader who is communicating transparently, if you work with a leader who is genuinely interested and involved in your development, if you work with a leader who cares about you as a human being, not just a worker, and if you work with a leader who shows you genuine appreciation for not just what you do, but also who you are, those are the 4 big things that are going to be the difference between, going to the neighborhood barbecue and complaining about your boss versus going to the neighborhood barbecue and telling everyone else, I don't know what you're talking about because my boss is great.
Mm-hmm. And that exactly, you explained it so beautifully. That's exactly what happened. I went from having a manager that, and I'm still in contact with her. I feel like she was my first ally, right? I feel like when I transitioned from team management to like formal manager, I felt that she was that sounding board for me. I mean, wasn't really afraid to kind of oppose this male-dominated industry. She kind of stood up and she presented her ideas, and she did that. And she said, oh, this is kind of what you do. And she really kind of took me under her wing. And that was one of the very few times in my entire career that I felt that I had that ally and that she believed and championed for me. And it seems like right when I got comfortable and very appreciative of that, they laid her off. And then I was one of the few people that was left from this, 20 plus team, me and one other resource. And then we just kind of got dumped over into this other manager's hands. And that probably was the beginning of the end, unfortunately, of my corporate career, because that was a very, very toxic place. Let me ask you this, because I was a community building type leader. And I really learned that my strong results and my success came from trusting and empathetic leadership. And I can tell you right now, Erika, when you're working in financial services and, you got guys on the trade floor and you got money moving every minute, that level of empathy, sometimes it's just lost. Tell me about your relationship with trust and empathetic leadership. And when did you know, even in HR, that was a key component to building some really effective leadership?
I agree 100% with you. And you'll hear in all of the things that we do, whether we're doing one-on-one executive coaching, whether we're doing a leadership skills workshop, or whether we're doing a professional skills workshop, we always talk about leading with heart. And leading with heart is the 4 things that I mentioned to you before. It's you caring enough about the people on your team to know them as human beings, and then to adjust your leadership approach to each one of them accordingly. And I think you and I had a bit of a similar experience. I've naturally lead with heart. And I can tell you, there are some teams that I led where every single person on that team trusted each other, loved each other, enjoyed being with each other. We spent personal time together. And with that comes along with it a level of honesty that you don't see on other teams. I think when teams have a really deep level of trust, and I'm not talking, I trust you to do your work well. I mean, I trust that you care about me as a person. When you've got that, people work harder for each other, not just the boss, for each other, because they don't want to disappoint the team. And they're more honest. They actually give each other more valuable feedback, because you can say like, Shanedra, I love you, but when you do X, Y, and Z, it's really driving me crazy. And for me, the best results, the times where me and my teams did the best work that I've ever done in my career, were the times when we had that kind of relationship. So I believe in that. I know that it doesn't really always jive in the corporate world. And it's one of the reasons why I decided to leave once too, because I remember someone calling me and saying, hey, I hear you're bringing your team out for happy hour once a month. And I was like, yeah, I am. We pick something to celebrate. We spend some time together. And I said, don't worry, I put it on my personal credit card. And you know what they told me? Please stop doing that. And it was one of the moments that made me say, I don't belong here, because the connection that we're building is fueling our results. And if you don't believe in that, then maybe this isn't the place for me.
And you know what? That's almost heartbreaking, because I mean, the experience was just parallel. With the last team I actually managed for 11, they were like a little bit of everywhere. We had Philippines, we had South Africa. It was a global operations team. And those people that had never even seen my face in the physical, had never even touched me, they would just have all these glorious things to say, because I really did take the time out, because I'm never likely going to see you unless they pay for me to travel there. And I would take a 30-minute off cycle and say, hey, how's it going? How's your child doing? How are these different things going? So it built this rapport that really couldn't be matched anywhere. But the thing that you said, when they told you like, this is not the right way, there were times where, for example, I had a young man on my team, and we were going through being new parents together. Our children are probably a month apart from each other. So that was an experience that we were sharing. I was becoming a mom. My son's he's 8 now, and his son should be 8 now too. But at the time, he was coming in a little bit frazzled. He just looked frazzled. So obviously my child is teething. So your child is probably in that cycle of teething too.
Mm-hmm.
I've been up all night too. I've been, So I would say, listen, you're going to walk over to Starbucks. It's a shit show here now. Excuse me. Anyway, all of the entire inbox is flooded. You stepping away for 25 minutes while you go and get your head straight, and I'm going to get you a cup of coffee, means more to me than you coming in here in the not so clear headspace and trying to navigate the work.
Right.
And things of that sort to get around, that I do small things like that for my team. Like I was just kind of mom there, and I was managing a lot of college age. Oh gosh, it was a lot of college boys that were just coming out of college, and they would get sick, and I would bring them lemon, and I would make them a tea, and I said, no, drink this. Don't take all of that cost. Drink this, is going to help. And that started to kind of get around, and I was actually kind of put on shame for that, Erika. That she's trying to be mama bear, and who is she supposed to be? And it was never any of that. I generally cared about their well-being, and I wanted them to come to work and feel that it wasn't about friendship. But number one, this lady actually cares about the environment that she's perpetuating. She cares about that. Because at the end of the day, the work is going to be the work. Is going to be the work. Did you want to? Oh, I thought you were going to interject. But yeah, it was very heartbreaking to hear that you were kind of, put to shame for that. And I too experienced that when I was only trying to build a cohesive team.
And I'd be willing to bet that people who worked for you and experienced that appreciated it. And it was the only people who may have been your peers or your leaders who didn't understand what was going on. Because do you ever see in the universities, they have this tool like Rate My Professor, and the students will go in and rate the professor, and other people look at it and say, like, should I take that class or shouldn't I take that class, right? The same thing happens with leaders, but it's all word of mouth. When you work for someone who's great and who cares about you, you go and tell somebody else, and they tell somebody else. And the next thing you know, you have an opening on your team, and there is a long line of people who are waiting to get on your team because of the reputation you've built for yourself and because what the people are saying. I call those people talent magnets, and I think that's a wonderful label to have.
I love that. You know, one of the things you mentioned, and I too fall this, but you said most managers, they have no formal training. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's telling my life story. She's telling my life story. Like, I felt like I never actually got any management training, right? It was this ability, okay, like, you know, I could get the work done, you know, kind of talk to people, but then like my work ethic was just so strong. They're like, well, I guess you can handle it. They were going strictly based on work ethic. Now, fortunately, and my God-given talent is community building and leading with heart. That was my fortunate situation. So I didn't find myself in a lot of managerial issues as many of my peers who were younger becoming managers as well. They too had strong work ethic, but the people side of it, it just wasn't there. Like I said, I'm fortunate to have those innate capabilities to do that. Tell me what is one of the most common gaps you see, particularly in new management, because I've been there. And I still was trying to figure out, like, why am I the manager? Like, I still didn't understand why I was in the seat, Erika. I did my job, but I still was questioning every day, like, what is going on here? But what was one of those common gap you see, particularly with new managers as they transition into management?
So there's a study that was done recently. 85% of newly promoted managers never get any kind of leadership training, which I find actually crazy. Because a lot of times what happens is, you know, when you don't know how you need to show up differently as a leader, you start to think about, well, what was it that made me successful as an individual contributor? That worked for me then, so I'll just double down on that now. And that's actually the most common mistake that we see is in the absence of direction and support, people double down on what made them great as an individual contributor. And when you're an individual contributor and you know all the answers and you get all the work done, that can actually turn into micromanagement as a leader. When you're an individual contributor and you always had the creative ideas on the team, if you continue to do that as a manager, you're going to drown out the voices of the people that work for you, right? And there's a whole list of common career pitfalls like this. We cover it in one of our workshops. You know, if you don't stop and think about how the rules change when you level up, how the expectations change, you can fall into that same trap of actually hurting yourself as a leader by continuing to do the same exact things that made you great as an individual.
Uh-oh, I love that tie between, this is a good one, because I love that tie between being like, oh, you're the individual contributor and you're getting all the work done, and you don't even realize that those traits do slip into micromanagement. You might not mean to be a micromanager, but because you're used to doing things at a certain pace, it's done at a certain time, and kind of because you massage that process. Like when I was an individual contributor prior to becoming a manager, I have massaged the process because Sineadra is I'm an operations person. Sineadra's going to massage the process. Okay, this is 8 minutes. How can I get it down to 5 minutes and 30 seconds? Like, can I do this and this together? Like, what can I do? So I massage that process. So now that I'm stepping away from the individual contributor role and I'm saying, okay, you're doing the task, it's not that Sineadra wants to micromanage, but there was time early in my management, and I had to learn, I had to evolve, where I was probably checking in too regularly. And this is transparent as I've evolved as a leader, because I'm thinking like, okay, well, why can't you get it done in 5 minutes and 30 seconds versus the proposed 8? I mean, and I'm like, Sineadra, come on. You've been doing the process for 2 years and you've massaged, you've worked with it, you have methodology, but that does not mean that that's theirs. So I can remember in my first shift in leadership, when I was like 27 years old, like managing a 24 person team. And I'm like, it just didn't seem right. You know, like a lot of people are older and younger. And then that demographic, even with the ages, I had to kind of step back. I said, what are the work habits? Like, what does this really mean? And then I was talking to people that were on the other side of the world. And I'm like, okay, here's a couple things. Number one, you work in the US. So time is different to you than
Yes.
it is in EU or Asia. Their psychological response to time is different.
Mm-hmm.
You work in a society where these people like in EU, they would tell me it's 12 o'clock, it's lunchtime. What you want me to do? They didn't say it like that. They would pretty much say, hey, it's 12 o'clock. I am clocking out at 12 o'clock and I will be back at 1 o'clock. So
Right.
whatever's going on, you better figure it out. Whereas my team, if it was 12 o'clock, it was just in their mindset that they just had to do, they would skip lunch. They would do all these different things. So when I started to understand, like, okay, this is bigger than me. It's not even about the task itself. There's a whole psychology that's unspoken.
Yes.
Going around. So I had to step out of that. And like during the evolution, by the time that I left, I had grown so much. And like, it was anybody. I didn't care where they were from, what they looked like. I could just have the conversation. And that to me out. And I said, my career, like towards the end, of course, was talking. I said, if nothing else, it would prepare me for this space because now I can just have the conversation. It's much less about the thing and more about the conversation. So when you came in with that segment, you connected the dots. I said, Erika, don't tell people my life. You came in.
Yeah, it's a really common phenomenon. And the thing that actually makes me sad is we don't train the people. And then 6 months later, 9 months later, their employees start going to HR and they're complaining, my manager's micromanaging me. This is happening. This is happening. And then the HR team and that person's manager step in and they go, well, maybe they're not cut out for leadership. Maybe we picked the wrong person. Yeah. No, maybe leadership skills are learned and you didn't teach. And that's one of the things that we're focused on in my company right now. Most of our work is through corporate clients. So a corporate client will come and say, we have managers who need to understand employee engagement. Will you come do a workshop? And that's wonderful. We're able to hit many, many people at once. But there's a lot of companies out there that do nothing. And what about those leaders? If you want to be a great leader and your company doesn't do any training, where do you go? So we're in the process of taking some of our most popular workshops and making them available, self-paced, digital at a super reasonable price point so that anybody can access it.
Yeah, and it's so important. Like not only the training, one of the things, my little thing when I left corporate, I said, it's not just about the training. I said, it's also about the evolution of the training, right? Times are changing. People are interacting differently.
Yes.
Because like I told you, even though I'm not that, I'm an 80s kid, but I was raised by 1940s kids. My grandparents raised me, my paternal grandparents, 1940s kids. I was always a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of like wisdom and how I think the world than my peer group. So when I was managing those young guys and they were, 23, 24, fresh out of undergrad, although we were like not that far apart in age, but just on where I was in experience and my back story, I was like a little bit ahead of life game with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so old. Like I feel so old because the way we're communicating is not connecting. So at that point, that's when I started to see the shift. I'm like, oh, these kids are used to texting. Like they're used to being on the computer. So sometimes when they speak to me, it's not that they're rude per se, right? It's really not that. It is their method of communication. It's typically shorter.
Right.
So, and I just like telling people, it's not, you can keep doing the same cookie cutter training if you want to and hope for a different result, but that's not the ultimate goal of it, because the evolution of what's coming into the workplace and then also how the older people are responding to it. So that, and leadership comes in different forms. I've met some 24-year-olds that are sharper in leadership than some 42-year-olds, and understanding that dynamic of leadership looks a little bit different, because I will tell an 18, 20, for sure, you can definitely come over and call me, because all this stuff y'all do, this 1980s kid is not with me. So I'm going to trust your leadership, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to do it so that we can build off of leadership capabilities and components, because there's a leader in all of us, but it doesn't necessarily look like what leadership should look like in the eyes of those who are in these companies. And that was my whole spiel before I left, Erika. I don't know if they use it and you let somebody else do. I don't know. But I told them that in a very concrete way as I was on my way out of the door. And I said, I'm telling you, as somebody who has been in and out of your company, has talked across several different cultures of people, different age groups, have managed different age groups. And this is real life perspective, not only for me, but with receipts. I got a whole lot of receipts and different things I can show you for interaction purposes. But thank you for that. And I know that's an excellent segue because you have an app.
Yes.
Right. Girl, I see Erika got a whole application out here. Tell us about the app and really kind of how you got into that and where you are in processing and what can we look for in this app.
This app is, honestly, it's a passion project of ours. And it comes from spending so many years in the corporate world and hearing managers say, thanks for all you do all the time, and I know most of the time it's super well-intentioned, but it's actually completely meaningless. I would literally see managers say, thanks for all you do. And then I would see their direct reports turn around and roll their eyes, literally. But I know sometimes it's hard to find the right words. When you want to thank someone and you want to do it in a genuine way, not everyone is a poet. So the app is full of pre-written messages, thank yous, appreciations, encouragements, all sorts of different messages. There's hundreds of them, so that you can search by keyword and find one that matches the scenario. And you can pull it up. You can put the person's name in it. You can put your name. You can write a little message. And then, like you were saying, different generations have different preferences. You can text it. You can email it. You could put it on social media. But for me, it was a way to help managers give more meaningful thank yous without having to think of the perfect words to do it. And it's free. It is 100% free. There's a couple of different paid collections out there, and we do create custom collections for companies also that are tailored to their company values. But there are hundreds and hundreds of messages out there that are just free because this is something I'm passionate about.
Oh, I love it. I definitely had to make sure I brought that into the interview. And right after that, let's just make sure we have a clean segment that we've already talked about Upstream HR, kind of throughout the podcast itself. But make sure we have a clean segment that gives us a 1 or 2 or 3 liner about Upstream HR and also your contact points. Where can we find you, whether it's social media or website, so that we have a clean segment for our listeners. So I'll let you do that.
Okay. Upstream HR. Our mission, as you said earlier, is to create a world where people love going to work on Mondays. And we do that by helping managers become great leaders and helping to build cultures and teams that people can thrive in. We do that through a combination of executive and management coaching, one-on-one coaching. We do management skills training workshops. We do team effectiveness workshops. And then we do special projects around employee engagement and culture. Upstreamhr.com is our main website. And from there, you can get to greetingsofgratitude.com. Getgreetingsofgratitude.com, which is our app. And then also you can search my name, Erika Migliaccio, on LinkedIn. I put a ton of content out there weekly. Most of it is actually bits and pieces from my workshop so that people can, again, get some insight into some of the latest thinking on leadership development.
Oh, I love that. So you guys make sure you are plugged in with her on LinkedIn, especially if that content is dropping. Also, we have a lot of small business owners that watch this. And like I tell people, of course, my journey was a bit, what it was to get the entrepreneurship. However, through all the pain or whatever, I am still very, very fortunate because I've come out with so many different leadership skills. And so all our small business owners who are expanding, please build from the core. I tell you all the time. I mean, my journey is what it is, but I can immediately spot because of my past experience when I speak to small business owners. We're like, okay, some leadership components here that are missing or shifted. And this is not a judgment thing, but this is just me telling you from a personal development standpoint, your leadership skills, even if you're running your own small business, they need to be honed in. You need to make sure that you are consistently developing yourself, because there's not a day that goes by that Sinead is not going to develop herself, because things are changing, life is changing, the world is changing. You cannot always rely on those same skills that you've always had in the past to fuel your future. Does that make sense?
100%. Well, and even for small teams, I think, sometimes businesses think it's going to be a massive investment to put people through some leadership training. It's not. Like you said before, the world has changed. We've evolved all of our offerings too. We have so many offerings that are 90-minute, very specific leadership skills that are super affordable for any company. So it doesn't take a massive investment to upskill those leaders who, let's go back, 70% of employee engagement is driven by the managers in your business. If you don't invest in them, you're going to lose the great talent.
Yeah, you're going to lose it. And also, even if you are a small person and you are the person, you might have a team of contractors. You may be the main face of the business. You don't want to get a bad reputation on how you handle certain things. I know people are they're scaling. It's just they're like a one-man show and they're trying to, branch out and do different things. As a leader, there's going to always be things. I told people like, yeah, you might see different branding or different things I do. I said, but you're going to get the same Shanasia because she is committed to showing up and doing this thing in a way, not of perfection, but of excellence. That is a part of my leadership model. I operate in excellence, not perfection, and I'm forever growing and learning. They will know that when they touch anything that I do.
Right.
And that needs to be a signature part of your leadership, whatever that looks like for you. Let me do this, Erika. I haven't got to do this in a while on the show. I want to give you this reflection question. I want you to imagine that it's your 80th birthday. I don't know who's in the room, Erika. I don't know what you're dressed in. I don't even know what y'all are eating. I have no idea. Okay. And I want you to imagine who's in that room. What are they looking like? But most importantly, what are they saying about the life and legacy of Erika? What are they saying about what she's done, who she is, and what are you hoping is their primary reflection of Erika?
For me, the biggest dream would be at that point in my life that I can go and look out into the world and see that the leaders that we coached are out there doing their thing and they're in big jobs and they are leading their teams and they are thriving and they are growing. And what I hope on my 80th birthday is that I continue to get calls and text messages from people who say, I remember when I was in your workshop and you said this, and I carry it with me today. To me, those are the most meaningful moments in my life, not just my career.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And that is, I haven't did the thing with myself with the 80th year, and it shifted. I remember back in 21 when I first left the corporate, I was thinking, oh, they'll say this one thing, but now it's a whole entire different thing. So as we kind of shift and we go through different phases, I think that could also to change. So you'll have this when you come back a year and look at this recording. You'll have this to do a measure.
I love it. Thank you.
I have 10 pre-prepared questions. I call this my rapid fire round. So you don't get a whole lot, Erika. You get either one word or maybe a couple of sentences to answer these questions. It's designed to keep you present and in the moment. And my first question is a core value that you lead with.
Heart.
Heart. Word you hope people say after your workshop.
That was fun.
Fun. Favorite way to recharge.
Reading.
Oh, me too. Yeah. Ooh, a real workplace myth that you bust.
Ooh, that if you keep your head down and work hard, you'll be recognized for it.
Okay, we could have went to a whole different segment on that, but I'm gonna be respectful of time. But y'all, that's a money shot right there. I'm telling you, that is a really, really good one. Okay, what does leadership and leading with heart feel like?
To someone who is the recipient of that, it feels inspiring. It inspires you to bring your best to work every day.
Tell me a leader you most admire.
There's so many. I was so fortunate to work in a company that had amazing leaders. But one of them, her name is Sharon Daly.
Okay.
Really instigated all of my creative, crazy ideas. And she fueled my creativity, supported me, and pushed me to go make those dreams a reality.
I love that. Tell me the hardest boundary you've had to set.
I love my work. My work is my passion. So it's hard for me to set boundaries on when to stop and dedicate myself to my family because work doesn't feel like work to me sometimes.
Tell me maybe a mindset or a phrase you repeat when self-doubt maybe starts to creep in.
You've done this before.
That's a good one. Give me a team habit that you love seeing.
The willingness to talk about the elephants in the room.
Love it. And last but not least, this is number 10. Why my work matters now. So I want you to finish this sentence. My work matters now because
we have enough bad leaders in the world that people go home and complain about.
More than
we spend the majority of our waking lives at work, and don't we all deserve to thrive in that environment and enjoy being there when we're there? You know, that's it.
I love it. That was an amazing rapid fire round. There were there was a couple, 2-3 questions. I know if I would have expanded, we probably could have gone a whole nother hour, but we are trying to be respectful of Miss Erika's time. But this is the part in our show where we cue over to our guests for final thoughts. We asked them to give us some great parting words for the space that we shared and really something that captures the essence of Erika. After your final thoughts, I'll be back to close the show. So over to you for final thoughts.
I think what I want people to know is that, you know, you can do the work on your own, but you can't have a career on your own. And there are so many resources out there. There are so many people who are willing to be a support and a sounding board. Just continue to be curious, never stop learning. And I think you'll have a very successful career.
And I can definitely co-sign that. You guys know I tell people, I don't care what you see your nature do. You will always know these two things about me. I am a servant and a forever learner. I don't really need any other fluff or anything else to describe me. Those are the two things that I live and embody. And I want to tell you guys, here on the Her Voice Shines podcast, we tell you miraculous things happen when you let your voice shine. It's been an absolute pleasure to have Erika here. Absolute beautiful and bubbly personality. And I'm just so happy that she shared her essence here. And like the people say at church, I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'll be back with another amazing woman on the Her Voice Shines podcast really in no time. But until then, we're out.